I immigrated to Korea when I was 8, or from Korea when I was 8. Back then, the joke was you move to LA, when you leave LA, you finally get to immigrate. But came here when I was 8 years old. That just like almost every other Korean I know, you take on the job, your family takes on the job with the person who picked you up at the airport. So my parents started with a lot of small businesses. So we did everything from wig shops to Photoshop to liquor store, all of that. And when I was growing up, I swore I would never, ever own a small business in my life because I saw how much hard work it was. And I think God has taught me a lesson, never swear that you're never going to do something because somehow you end up doing that. But this coffee thing is my fourth career. So initially I was the dutiful Korean-American son who was supposed to become an aerospace engineer, went to MUD thinking that's what I was going to be, and within month one I realized I was never going to be an engineer. That's not my personality. Then ended up in urban planning as my graduate degree at UCLA because right when I was graduating from undergrad, it was the LA riots, and that's what influenced me the most. And I saw, I'm getting a little precamped, but you guys are talking about bringing peace to the city, but we were there when it was burning, and it was a horrible thing to see. And so we felt called, my wife and I felt called to do urban ministry at that time. So we were involved in conflict resolution, especially Black Korean conflict resolution for about 8 years. And then because of family situation, we ended up going back into the family business, helping out, and the three of us worked in a noodle business called Passport Food Group. And our joke was, you never heard of us, but you've eaten us. So if you had an avocado roll, egg roll, wonton skin somewhere in a national chain restaurant, it was our skin that you were tasting. So we had clients from Applebee's to TGI Fridays to Cheesecake Factory to Wolfgang Puck's restaurants. And it was an amazing 12-year experience, but it was one of those things where I couldn't understand why God has led me there, right? So I thought I was going to be in urban planning and doing, urban ministry. That was going to be sort of our calling. And next thing you know, we're doing noodle manufacturing. And then about 6.5, 7? Has it been that long? 7 years ago, we sold the business to an equity firm, and the three of us were sitting around going, what do we do next? And our prayer was, Lord, whatever it is, help it to be something where our faith and our work and our family, all of it is in one place. I got tired of being a schizophrenic because I'd had one personality at work, one personality at home, and one personality at church. And it didn't make any sense to me to live life that way. So our prayer was, God, could you kind of put it together? And the great advice I got was, do something you love, and it'll never feel like work again, right? And you're doing something you love, it's going to be passionate, and you're going to be having fun. I love two things outside of faith and family, and that's baseball and coffee, and it was way too late for baseball. Someone had already taken the shortstop job at Dodgers, so it was kind of, I guess coffee is the next thing I have available to us. So we started out on a coffee venture and spent a year researching coffee, really getting into it, spent a month in Europe visiting all the coffee shops that I had read about, went to Costa Rica for about 3-4 weeks, picking cherries and learning on the farm, the coffee business. And through all of that, we came to this understanding that we wanted to start a missional business. There was a series of 8 conversations that we've had where God showed up, and it was with different missionaries and different people who are doing the work. And when we asked them, what is the hardship in doing missions work or impacting culture through faith? And they all say the same thing. When you go overseas, it's money and the visa. It's short-term missionaries don't work. Long-term missionary work does work. It is effective, but the problem with that is every 6 months or so, you got to come back, either to fundraise or to renew your visa. And every time you go to a country, you get culture shock, and it takes you about 3 months just to get used to that culture. So you're effective for about a month and a half, 2 months, and then you got to come back. And then when you come back, you get culture shock. And then you feel really cruddy because you're now begging for money to do kingdom work. And that kind of sucks. And then you have to go back. And this back and forth is what makes it very hard. So we were kind of thinking through this process and thought, if we had a missional business that missionaries could then use to go out and do their work, then it could be sustainable, they could stay a long term. Because believe me, no matter what the country is, if you're willing to bring in money and invest into a country or to a city, they'll take you in. Even in the States, it's hard to get a green card unless you have $1 million and are willing to hire 10 people. Great, we'll give you a green card tomorrow, right? It's that quick. So it's that kind of an open doorway kind of process. So we thought, okay, if we did that for missionaries, this might be a great idea. So we started diving into that idea, and the next thing we found out was 99.9% of missional businesses fail within 6 months to a year. 99.9. Not like some work and some don't. They don't work, right? So we try to figure out why it doesn't work, and it's because missional business or missionaries make really bad business decisions, right? It's what Eden was talking about earlier. Risk adverse, afraid to make decisions, and then a lack of purpose or clear understanding of what it is you're doing. So we would hear about these businesses that would get created that were saying, well, what we want to do is bless the farmers that we get the coffee from by paying them more than the market rate. Then we want to pay our employees more than the market rate because we want to bless the employees. Then we want to bless our customers, and we're going to charge lower than everybody else charges so everybody can have access. And then you do the math and you go, okay, I'm designing a company that's doomed to fail within 3 months. And then they think, well, if we do that, somehow God's going to change that math. And we build it, it'll be blessed, and everything's going to be fine. And it doesn't. And then they go, what happened? It was God's will. Right? And a lot of times it wasn't. It was this lack of clear understanding of why you were doing, what you were actually being called to do, right? So the idea for us was, hey, look, why don't we put together a business? Because one of the values of having spent 12 years in the noodle business was that we got a chance to see how a lot of these national chains work. A Cheesecake Factory opens its doors in any new location. There's a 45-minute to an hour wait day one. Not day two, not a month later, not a year later. Right away, there's success. And how do they do it? It's because they have systems. They've already figured out the demographic studies that need to be done. They already know how many people to hire. They already know what to pay them. They already know what the menu is going to be. It's all figured out. So the idea for us was, can we do that? Can we figure out how to make a business that we can hand off to a missionary that can guarantee a little bit higher percentage of success rate than a failure rate of 99.9%, right? And so that's what started Copa Vida for us. Copa Vida has got double meaning. Copa Vida is a play on a Costa Rican phrase, pura vida, which is the answer to everything in Costa Rica. How's your day? Pura vida. How's your night? Pura vida. But depending on how you say pura vida, it means completely different things, right? And I love that phrase, so we came up with Copa Vida as a play on that. But Copa Vida also means cup of life, and Christ is cup of life to us. And so that's sort of the background behind it. We're not a missional business. I want to be very clear about that. Our proceeds don't go into a ministry or to support missionaries. We're a business, period. And I want to leave it there because I think that's really important distinction. And what we're doing is creating systems, and we have a 10-year plan. First 5 year was figure out what it means to run a coffee shop and profit. Then create systems for the next 5 years. And when we're ready at the end of 10, that's when we're launching. And we are starting to put together those things. We have a pretty good model right now that is pretty exciting. It's in a shipping container that we really believe that can bless missionaries with a business model that can actually be applied and actually have a good chance at success. And so we're about 6 years into that 10-year plan. We got 4 more to go. We have 6 locations now. Last night we celebrated a grand opening down in Carmel Valley in San Diego for our 6th location. We have a roastery. We're going to be bolting on an import business soon, and there's going to be a few more things that are going to be happening that's pretty exciting for us. But all throughout this pathway, God's been pretty clear about what it is that we are supposed to do. But the thing I wanted to kind of mention that I think is kind of germane to what's being spoken about here today, I couldn't make sense of why I was born to a Korean American family living that small business life. And it didn't make sense to me why I went into urban planning, because I ended up doing nothing with urban planning. And then it didn't make any sense to me why I was in conflict resolution, and it didn't make sense to me why I was in noodle making business. Until about 6 years ago, all of a sudden it all made sense. Every piece of those activities and that experience has now come to focus my attention on what we're doing, and now it makes sense. The small business experience I got, I knew clearly what I was getting into when I got into Copa Vida. The urban planning and conflict resolution piece, all I do is resolve conflicts all day long between employees and customers, between coworkers, between investors. That's all I do. It's conflict resolution is my life right now. And then that 12 years of noodle business, which didn't make any sense to me, it makes total sense because I have a deeper understanding of the food business than most other entrepreneurs that go into coffee to start with. So all that came to sort of kind of now this point in my life where like, oh, that's why, right? And so one of the things I want to encourage you to do today is whatever it is you feel like you're at, keep doing it. it can't be a mistake because we have a God who already said, I already know what's going to be. And there's a God who's going to redeem whatever mistakes that you make in your life. And all of a sudden, it'll make sense. That doesn't happen too often in life, but there's a couple of times in life where you go, that's why. And everything clears. Everything clears up. And it's a great place to be at. So that's what I want to encourage you with today. Yeah.